Well, we've reached the appointed hour of starting time, so if we can stand and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We ask for blessing and as we deliberate and think, plan, strategize. Thank you, Lord, for the collaborative attitude that we're starting to develop as a group. We just ask for your blessing and just help us to think well. In your name, amen.
We'll begin with the approval of the minutes from the April 11th meeting. Any additions or corrections?
So moved.
Kathy and Rex. All in favor? Opposed? Sign this in. Tim?
Well, first, wow.
Yeah.
I think that's a first. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is our annual funding request and financial update. I did the same presentation to the commissioners last week.
I already have it.
I know you.
What did they say?
Thank you.
Two years ago, we had made a request to increase our funding to $41,280. That is the first increase that we've requested. We think it's over 25 years. So it's 2 years later. With everything that's going on in the economy, we're asking for an increase to $4,128, which is 10% increase. And this is the same request is going to be made to Wells County also. So that will be at the beginning of June. Same amount, yes. As far as challenges, qualified staffing period is a major challenge, as it is, I think, for every business. We've increased our payroll expenses. We're paying $13 an hour right now, and that actually needs to be more. We are doing something kind of unusual this year. We're doing bonuses, and they're every 2 to 3 months throughout the year, just trying to keep employees and also encourage new employees. So that's actually, we've done 2 bonuses so far this year, and it's working well. So inflation, it's in the news all the time. 2021 was 7.5%. 2022 was 6.5%. We're about 5% now. So compounded, we're at over 18% for the last few years. So certainly a lot more expenses and a lot of things are not coming back down. So we've reduced our day services programs. That was due to new government guidelines, which have increased our revenue. And also we have 4 open residential beds, but right now it's looking like we may fill 2 of those by the end of this month. It's a really slow process, and it's controlled by government agencies. So right now we're about a $764,000 deficit. $228,000 of that is depreciation. And a couple of things that will have a positive impact on this is we shut both of our sheltered workshops. That was also government regulations that had changed, so that we no longer could do that. But that should be a savings of about $125,000 a year, because we never made any money on that program. That's something that we just did because the people that we serve really love that work. So The folks, a lot of the folks that work there, they have found community jobs with the needs in the community and stuff that certainly has helped them out from that standpoint. We added electronic message center out in front of the building, so even though it's a really big building there in Bluffton, you just never saw it, so that really kind of brightened things up out front there. And also we changed our website too, which allows us to communicate better. And then the Indiana government and federal government have been working on an increase for providers. That was approved this year, but as far as what the dollar amount looks like, what the regulations are going to be on how we spend it, and exactly when we receive it is unknown. Originally, they said it was going to be January 1st, but now they're looking at maybe October 1st, and then they were saying some of them that maybe it's going to go back retroactive payment till July 1st. So it's still all up in the air, but we should be receiving something. So we're still a financially sound organization. It's just some tough times like a lot of different places. So that request was made to the commissioners last week, and that was approved. So, any questions?
What do your bonus amounts equal?
Pardon me?
What do your bonus amounts equal?
What are they equal? Yeah, it depends on the position, and it's based on how many hours the individual works. So it all goes into a pool, and then at the end of the period, it's looked at how many hours you worked, and then based on your pay rate and so on. So it's figured that way. So it varies. To answer your question, it varies every time depending on how much you work. So.
Is this your first year for that?
Pardon me?
Is this your first year for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually been very well received, and actually some of the checks have been pretty nice size for the folks. So yeah, it's worked well.
Procedurally, we don't need to actually do anything on this, right? This just goes into the under the commissioner's budget for 24. Is that
It goes under the commissioner's budget, and then council obviously approves
the full
the
thing?
overall budget, but I would guess that if they get council's approval of that today, they will know what they're going to be getting and won't have to wait until September or October to figure out what they're going to be getting. So that'd be my guess. Where that's typically what we've done every year. Commissioners approve it to go in their budget, and then council approves that amount.
So are we just giving them a direction since we're not approving any budget items?
You're approving that amount to be budgeted into the commissioner's budget.
I'll make a motion to.
How does the number of people served, like how much does that vary from?
Actually, in the past year or so, we've had about 12 of our people pass on. A lot of our population is aging, so it's been a difficult time for us from that direction too. And typically, we serve about 155 individuals, and right now we're probably about 130. But we've started increasing that again. Some of our staffing is stabilized and stuff, so that's been kind of a holdback for some of that too, is because you don't have the staff to provide that support for that. So.
Did you add an extra nurse this year?
Pardon me?
Did you add an extra nurse? Was that last year
No,
or this year?
No, we have 2 RNs at full-time, and we have 2 part-time RNs. And then all the medications we pass, which most of the people that we serve have quite a few medications that they have to take. It's all under our nurse's license. So we closed our group home on Baltimore in Bern this past year due to the fact that the stairway was so steep and the bedrooms were upstairs and the people have aged to the point where stairs are very difficult for them. So we ended up finding a home outside of right in Bluffton, actually, that has got lower level bedrooms and so on. And so we've switched over that because of the people that we serve needs. So,
Is the makeup normally about the same of breakdown of people? Like there's about 75% of the people.
sorry.
Well, there's 25% more people and roughly in Wells County than
Right.
County.
Yeah, because it was always about 8 until we moved that home and there were 7 people in the home. So we took 7 away from Adams County and added 7 to Wells County. So that, that just happened. So,
To confirm that they're going to approve that month. Yeah.
but those numbers will change here too if we can get staffing and so on, because we'll actually have different programs and that we would like to offer to additional people. So
Kathy made a motion, which I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve a funding amount by county services for $45,408 for next year. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes. Thank you, Tim.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
I can even do that. I've got it. Just go ahead and call them up.
That's one thing nice about them.
Decatur Diamond?
It's located in Washington.
Council, Decatur Diamond is here today just to get approval to continue their abatement that they were given. It's the CF1 form that if you all approve that they are in compliance, Dennis signs it, I attest it. We take it upstairs, we get them a copy, and we're good to go for another year. And I apologize, I did not make copies of this to give to you guys. That's my fault. However, I can pass it around if you like, but I need to make sure I get it back. They had estimated at the beginning when they received the abatement that they would be at 47 employees at some point with 1.7 million in salaries. The actual number of employees is currently 32, but the salaries is 2 million, over 2 million, 2,013,021, which tells me having the same problem that I'm having in my store and all other people are having. They can't get employees, and the ones they have to pay a lot more. I'm assuming that's the truth. That's the same thing I'm suffering. So I'm going to pass this around. Dennis, do you want to see it first, or you want me to pass it?
I'll see it now.
The numbers are all in the front, and then, like I just stated, I don't know if you all or Ann wants to say anything.
Just to also clarify, we have 2 abatements, and one is, I think it's the 1.7 million, which you mentioned, and then our other abatement, I think it was 1.9 million. Same
We
number.
have the one for the DMG Morey Machining Center. It's the only paperwork I have today. I don't have one on the other one.
I've got a copy of the other that,
Is it a CF1?
yes. It was submitted with the return. We filed it.
If you have a copy of it, let's look at that. Because was one personal and one real?
They have 2 abatements, one on the real property and
Okay.
one on the equipment.
And the one he has there is the real.
No,
Yeah, this is
both
personal.
personal.
Both personal?
They're both equipment improvements.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the only one we got from the assessor's office is this one that
was
Corey.
for, let's see, from 2016, or it was from 2021, it was your resolution
Yeah, let me see.
16.
Julie Marie and I can take a look at it. So this is for this machining stuff, so we didn't get that. But.
We can amend it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Oh, this one at least looks like the equipment is exactly the same as what you had estimated. The estimated versus actual is the same.
Yeah, exactly. When we put in the request, we basically knew what the cost was going to be.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
didn't run anything extra.
I'll read this to them.
Did any of those employees, I think it's the Dayton plant you consolidated?
Yes.
Did any of those stay? I know they were coming.
We'll just do it.
We were able to retain two of
Which
them.
one we are approving here?
That's better.
Two of them. Yeah, there was only 4 or 5 that the Kid City plant wouldn't shut it down, so basically we got half of them.
Good.
So, they moved here then? One of them moved here, the other one commutes.
They're gonna do it in the
Yeah,
first week.
when we say he commutes, he lives here 3 days a week, 4 days a week. He comes in on Monday morning, he goes home on Thursday night. So he is actually in the city 4 days. So we, we're staying at the
Does that make
local
sense?
hotel, we're at a bed and breakfast here. And as Tony mentioned, our biggest challenge is finding people. We've got open positions, and I'm sure any of you who are in industry are facing the exact, or city government or whatever, it's the exact same problem. And then because of this newer equipment that we've got, and we've added some other equipment that we really haven't asked for abatements on, we need to hire trained people. And so we're robbing from other companies and they're robbing from us. It's a never-ending battle, and it's raising the wages, but we're not adding any headcount.
And you're,
We're just training.
just going off memory, your employees, they were up in the 40s, what was last year? Or pre-corona, I think it was really close, and then
We were above 40 pre-corona. When we hit corona, we lost some people, and those people went to other jobs, and we haven't been able to replace them. But by the same token,
yeah, and the salaries were lower too.
yeah, the salaries were lower. And quite honestly, our benefits were lower. We've raised our benefits, raised our wage rates, and we still have the challenges of trying to get people in. Some people that left before the pandemic,
That's the other one.
or during the pandemic, have gotten other jobs,
Basically
and
done the same
we
thing.
haven't been able to replace them.
Mhm.
I think I've asked this before, but are you guys doing any type of apprentice type program for? We have tried with the Area 18 vocational, or South Adams. And problem there that we found is even, there's not enough kids wanting to go into that right now. And so the pickings are a little slim there when you try to, go from that pool. There's not a real push on field in schools anymore, unfortunately. Belmont's actually gonna build put a building up for. Are they?
Kind of
For
project.
the trades, I believe, that type of stuff.
I'll make a motion to approve both. I mean, your equipment's the same and total, I didn't realize the body count's down, but the total payroll's above, so it's good to me.
I'll second.
What we need to do.
Corey moved, John seconded. The motion to approve the tax abatement for Decatur Diamond as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, I'm passing around the other one that we received. Bree just took a copy up to the assessor's office because the one that I had, the first one that we just did, was stamped and filed by the assessor's office, then it came to us. This was not. So I need to find out if they need to do something first, because I just don't know. Because if we approve it and it didn't go through, I don't know.
Would it be possible to go ahead and have council consider it and potentially conditionally approve?
We could say
based on
contingent upon
approval
necessary
from the
approval by
assessor?
the assessor.
Okay.
I think we could do that. Julie, Marie, do you agree?
Yes, you can.
So, maybe we might find out yet while we're considering this, because you guys got that right? I passed that around. So this one, I give you a copy back, or you want to wait until it gets signed and stuff? Assuming, just wait.
I never get anything back from them.
Okay. I usually scan a copy and send it, I think, to Tim or Ann, actually, so, okay. Well, what you're looking at is also For personal property, it's machining and equipment and so forth. And they had expected 43 employees, they have 32, but again, the salaries that have been expected were 1.6, and it's actually over 2 million again for that. So same situation, same thing that we discussed on the other. And if you have questions, you can ask. If not, if we approve it before we get that answer from the assessor, it would be contingent upon necessary approvals by the assessor's office.
I'll make that motion, and again, contingent, but
Second.
Moved and seconded to conditionally approve the second abatement as presented. All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay, thank you. And then I'll get whatever copies you need, either to you or Tim one. I think I have both your emails.
With the 2021 was in good form.
Yes, the first one had the assessor stamp
Second
and
one is-
went through. I honestly don't know what happened to the second one. I never received it. All I got was the first one, but the motion that was made contingent upon necessary approvals, I think we're good. And I got confirmation from Julie Marie, so
Yep.
I think we should be good to go ahead and go with both of them. I'll inform you though if we need anything.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nathan is not here. We're ahead of our time. He's not here. Nathan?
Yeah, I guess he's back here.
I can't see him through Julie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's back there. And just you and I, just.
I can see that.
Good morning. Just coming to give you guys an update on the projects that we have going on and the future projects. So Project 3, that is the Lynn Grove, Preble Peterson projects along with Slim's Lake. We still have 15 that are still needing to hook up. In that project, we have 4 low flow exemptions that have been signed. That low flow exemption is when we were with the lawsuit with the Amish. That low flow is for them to be exempt on that end of it. Project 4 is the one that we're working on right now. That is Oakwood and Sunnybrook. Our deadline, we just set it for next Monday, the 15th, that the contractors have to be done, everything final. If not, liquidated damages will start. So we got Fleming right now. We're going to replace the road out there. We're going to tear the whole road out, give them a brand new one. We didn't go into this thinking that the road was as bad as it was. There's no base to it. Whenever they put that road in, they just poured concrete more or less right on top of a couple inches of stone, and it's just, and then asphalt over top of that over the years. So we've worked with the highway department, Commonwealth, our engineering firm. We've got it designed, ready to go. That is something that is not in the liquidated damages side of things. We have got quotes on that. Fleming is going to do that as soon as everything is okayed. We have a meeting this Thursday, so we're hoping that everything will be good out there. They're doing the mandrel today. They will connect the new lift station to the old line, I'm thinking Thursday. So we'll be able to start, as long as everything goes good. Connections out there will start probably within the next couple weeks. Sunnybrook, they passed all their air tests on 100 and 200. They're doing the main line today. We're hoping that everything's good out there. I got Ferguson out there today doing startups on the grinders, so we're hoping everything goes great there. As for Project 5, so Magley, the Winchester Extended, and Clems Lake South, which is 224, projected dates on that. We're hoping Magley is underground out of New Haven. They are the contractors that did Project 1 out at Monmouth. They will be starting 1st of August time is rough date. Winchester is Miller Construction, which is doing Sunnybrook. They're hoping to start, as soon as they're done here, they're going to move their equipment over and try to get started on Winchester right away. Clem's Lake, Fleming is kind of up in the air on that. We're hoping August start date, but we have to kind of see where they're at with other projects and get going on that. So as of today, Project 1, we have 240 customers. Project 2, we had 88. And Project 3, 382. Those are all on full rates, the full $93.30 a month. Project 4, we have 167 connections out there. Right now, they're still doing the $20 a month rate. Once we send the order to connect, that rate will go up to $93.30. And then in Project 5, we have projected 200 connections in that. So in total, we'll have 1,077 customers. So as of right now, we have 710 at full rate. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll start doing orders to connect on Project 4. So things are moving along. We're hoping Project 5 goes a little bit smoother than 4 has. Less problems that we run into, but that's the unknown when we're doing what we're doing. We just don't know what we're getting into until we get some dirt moved and figure it out. So we are hiring a maintenance technician. That job was posted and we've got 7 or 8 applications that were sent in. We're hoping to start doing interviews in the next week or so. I know the board has been reviewing those and determining who they're going to interview and stuff like that. So hopefully we can get somebody hired here soon so we can start training and get them moving along. So. Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nathan.
I just texted.
We'll wait on Mark Burry's presence to consider the interlocal agreement. So Julie Marie is
What about the public safety?
public safety.
Yeah, I think
That's what? No.
we're not doing,
No, they're not.
okay.
You got the,
I've
he's
got
got the
that.
correct agenda. Dan called and said they weren't coming.
Okay.
If you wanna go to me, you can.
I'm sorry.
You can go on to me if you want to, unless,
Yeah.
if you want to handle all the attorney stuff, I'll say.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Tony's up next. Auditor's report.
Okay. We do have no additionals. We have a couple of transfers and salary ordinances. And I do want to say, Corey had mentioned something about collaboration. I appreciate that. I think everybody is collaborating. Doesn't mean we'll always have 100% agreement on everything, but we're trying to work together and so forth. You know, I kind of look, not because I'm super old, but I kind of look at my office as the parent. And I'm like, I like that you guys want these new shiny toys, but first let's see if we can afford it, make the payments on it. So as we go through this process, and I'm speaking of budgets and lit and so forth and so on, we had the work session. We've had all this information that we've all looked at. And, you know, I'm very frugal, I'm very conservative. And I just want us to be careful as we go through it to make sure we have the dollars that we need. We have a new timeline that we're looking at, and that would be actually the last week of August. So you guys will need to be thinking if you can get together during that week at some point to go over budgets with departments that are maybe over what they were directed to be. The only thing really that we need today is guidance on wage so that we can tell the departments what to build into their budgets as we begin to look at them. If you further want to put some sort of limit, like a percentage over the previous year's fund, we have to have guidance on that to also be able to tell the departments, what they need to look at and how they need to look at it. And all of this is the discussion that you all will have. I'm going to quote a wise man named Fred Velez that I think has put it extremely well several times. We want to do the best that we can by the taxpayers, but we also know, and we heard Darren Bates say it, that always be pessimistic with the state. We don't know what they're going to do. We do know that they've passed 2 laws to make themselves look better. Sorry, state, but that's what you did. That counties and schools and so forth will have to come up with revenues for that, so we have to be aware of that. But as Fred has said, you want the max levy, you want to advertise high because you need to get those dollars, because the fact is, those taxes are going to be collected anyway. If we don't take the dollars that our own county taxpayers are paying, it'll go to other counties. Fred, did I put that pretty much how you said it?
Mostly.
I mean, if you want to correct me, you can. I didn't mean to choke you up. But I just wanted to.
I will say, when it comes to property taxes, I researched that stuff quite a bit and had some of the others here join me in some of those meetings, and they're collecting the money no matter what. So it depends on where it goes. So.
Did you want to do these 3 now?
We can if you want, and then we can do the additionals, or not the, I don't have any additionals. If you all, since we're waiting on folks, we can go ahead and have, if you like, the discussion on guidance for us to tell departments, because it is a council discussion, and as everything else with council, it always comes down to the majority vote, because we're a democratic society. So we have the discussion, you all decide, and we kind of go from there. I only step in if I feel I have to as the fiscal officer of the county. So.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of pick up where that's at, we have 3 sort of bigger things that we've all been talking about, and we're teed up and I think ready to go on. The first one is this budget process that Tony and I have gone over, talked with a handful of you guys quite a bit about that. So that's that first page on there. So that'd be just a little bit of a revised timeline. The second one is the department head guidance for them building out their budget. And then that third one is to get the ball rolling on the income tax changes on that side. So maybe just to recap, just kind of go through these one at a time, I guess. The budget process, without getting crazy to detail, the big thing would be just that department heads would have their budgets in by June 9th. It's the date that Tony and Bree were looking at. And then by August 16th, we have all the info that we need from the states. So all the different entities, we know everything at that point. So then that would give Tony's office another week from there to compile some of that stuff that we haven't really looked at in the past, estimate income numbers and all that. And then we would do our workshops August 28, 29, and 30 instead of the September one. That would allow them to publish after we're done by the 1st, which is Friday. And then we can still have the public hearing on the following council meeting that's on that 12th. So that would still be the public hearing. Everything would be the same on that side. Public gets a chance to come in and say whatever they want. And then we vote on the budget in October.
Can I interject just for a second?
Yep.
I forgot to mention, when these discussions were going on, I did say we have to meet whatever days are necessary for publishing, for deadlines from DLGF. We have to meet those deadlines. So there's really, we don't want to turn anything late. We don't want to get in trouble by not publishing in a certain length of time. So assuming that all of that happens and is the case, you know, I think what Corey was saying about collaboration, it's also a little bit of compromise because, you know, we're kind of changing up the way that it's been done for years and years and years. So makes me a little nervous just because it's the first time. But in the end, you know, you've got to try some new things. So if this actually ends up working better, and I think Corey has said this is a year to look and see if it works and then kind of go from there. All we have to do from my office's standpoint is meet all the criteria, deadlines, everything else that we're supposed to meet and make sure that we don't jeopardize the other units in the county and somehow inadvertently cutting something too much and all of a sudden we're in trouble. So we'll kind of, I think it's kind of baby steps really along the way to all collaborate and get to where we would like to be. So I didn't mean to interrupt you for that.
No, it's fine. And I think it's been a whole different ballgame here this year, you know, with a good chance to talk and think and, you know, get with people and really analyze this. So I'm glad to be where we are. But so really from our perspective, from council, the only thing really that's changing from our side is just that Tony's going to send us all the info, compile all the estimated income figures and all that from the state and just send it out to us. And then we'll meet August 28, 29, and 30 if that works for everybody. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then the benefit there is just that we publish after instead of before, so we don't have any restrictions while we're planning.
We're just in two days this year though.
So I figured we'd still put it down for 28, 29, and 30. It'd be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but hope to not use Wednesday, just that way we have it.
And keep in mind that Tuesday, you have a commissioners meeting and we no longer have another meeting room because 125, even if it's ready to go, would not be big enough. You can't have more than 16 people in there.
So what he and I were kind of talking about is Tuesday, normally we'd have a full council meeting, right? So that would have taken up a big chunk of the day. Now we can still meet if we can find somewhere else.
You could do it
during
1
that
to
like
4.
2 hours, or we could just skip it and call it an early lunch or something and come back.
But that would be all of your decisions. And the discussion today gives everybody time to look and see if they can make that work the last week of August. We only have to publish those meetings, I think, 48 hours in advance, if I'm not corrected, or if I'm not wrong there. Bree, is that true? 48 hours in advance for?
Yeah, because right now it's the 2 days in September is all that
Okay.
is published.
So that had already been published in January when we had our meeting dates. So what we would effectively be, you still have that public hearing on that day.
Yep.
But we would have the workshops prior to that, so we would have to publish that.
Yep.
And everybody get together on whatever days we come up with to do that.
So nothing new from what we talked about last week. But I don't know if there's any other. Do you want to just go ahead and be done with it, so I have to come back to it?
I mean, that's totally up to you guys. That just that can almost even wait till the August meeting because we just need to get 48 hours. That's up to you guys as to whether or not, if you need time to look and make sure you're going to be available or something like that, that's totally up to council. I mean, that's because Bree and I should already be here those days, so we're good to go on that, but it just depends on all of you.
The only thing we have to have is the guidance.
Yeah, the only thing we have to have
That's what we can do that now.
is the guidance for us to tell the department. That's all we really need. The other stuff can effectively wait, or, I mean, it's whatever. If you want to do a consensus, if you want to table it and look at it, it's totally up to you guys.
Probably we've kind of beat it to death, so I'm ready to move on, but.
Yeah, as far as this preliminary schedule goes, that's fine with me right now. We can finalize that later.
Yeah.
Do you need anything, do you need like a motion for setting that August 28, 29, 30?
Don't you already have that set for budget hearings?
We have the budget hearing set
September.
for September 12th.
Okay.
What we would need to do, I think 13th. whatever that day is,
If
12th.
you're gonna do that, then yes, do that, because you set the calendar in January, so if it's not on the calendar, you should make a motion and set that.
Okay, so I'll make that motion then to adopt that revised schedule.
This whole first page, essentially.
I mean, really, the 28th to 30th is the only thing, I guess, that really technically.
Still planning on doing 2 days in September too?
No,
No.
no.
So you would just be, you,
You would just have the public hearing.
and actually
right
that
before-
public hearing,
is like part of regular council meeting.
if you do this before, I think I had mentioned to somebody that in talking to DLGF, they said you basically get 3 bites at the apple. This first bite, then you get a second bite, and then you have the 1782 notice where you get the third bite if you need it. So it's not that it's all done on that September or anything else. It goes on a little farther that changes can be made.
September meeting, though, we'd start the meeting, end the meeting for the hearing.
Well, you would have your normal,
Start the
Yeah.
meeting again.
you'd have your normal council meeting that day, and then you would have the budget hearing as part of that meeting, and then that's already scheduled, so you conceivably could, if you don't get through it all in those 3 days, you could conceivably finish it up that day, which,
We don't finish in 3 days.
So are we- or in August, are you going to call it a work session?
Whatever we called it in the past, what was it on the original ordinance workshop or
budget hearings,
whatever we called it before, just moving that to the 28th to 9:30.
what were those second, the budget hearing?
I think it says budget hearings, but I don't know, if it's not going to be on the if it's different from the schedule.
Are
Do
you
we have to call it a
changing your
work-
budget hearings, or is this a work
Yes.
session supplementary to?
We're changing it. We're leaving the public hearing still to be on that same day. We're just changing our workshops to be before
And
the,
it will be like before, where it'll be such a meeting, there's no votes.
right?
So
It's just for hearing.
a work session.
So
Right.
Yeah.
it would be effectively a budget work session to finalize it and then have the public hearing, I guess.
So what we need to do is just put in the minutes today that you're taking official action to change the date.
So public hearing 1 day in September and then work session.
And that public hearing does not change. Yeah, the public hearing just
The
stays.
public hearing
Right,
stays the same.
that's the schedule.
Calendar
Yeah,
because
right.
what was advertised to the public was 2 days in September.
Correct.
Right.
Yep, you got it.
So just make that.
And change it, we then would have to advertise for the 28th, 29th, 30th. The times on the commissioners' meeting day will have to be figured out. You either come at 8 and then stop, come back,
Taking a real-
wait till the commissioners is over, and have it from that point till
Figure it out.
4, whatever you need to do.
Is it something, do you want to wait and actually make a motion like June or even July after we have budgets to see if you think you're gonna need 3 days to finalize?
We have
like,
3
the
days right
different
now,
times?
so it's not any
That's what I was
different.
thinking. I think this will speed it up to
I'm
a
okay
day.
with 2. I'm happy. Hey, I'm good with 2, but I just didn't know if you guys want, I mean, we've always had 3, so if you want
We
to
have
keep
to
3.
do this Tuesday day.
So let's just go.
Last couple of years, we've gotten done in 2.
So
If you
29th
wanted to do the 28th and 30th and not worry about the commissioners' meeting, that would work. But it's up to you guys.
I'm just,
It's probably better
Yeah, go
to
for the
schedule more
22.
time, because if you
28,
adjourn
29,
early,
yeah,
it's
back-to-back.
not an issue.
What date is
Additional day,
commissioners'
you're
meeting
gonna
on?
have-
What is, which,
29 is the commissioner.
29th is the commissioners,
But it's like at 11 o'clock, right? Or 10
10
o'clock.
o'clock.
So I mean, you can break for a
So
little
you,
bit there and
if
come
you
back.
wanted to do the 28th,
28, 29.
Yeah,
That's fine.
and then if you have to break and come back, whatever.
yeah. All right, so I'll make that
So
motion.
28th and 29th. And that would still give you the 12th.
Yep.
If you need to finish it.
Yep.
Need a second.
Right.
Corey and Fred have a motion and a second to change the meeting calendar to reflect budget hearings. All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay, so that second thing then was the guidelines to the department heads. So I think where we've all landed on this is basically doing a 10% increase over 2022 expenditures, which is different than in the past. We did it over budget. So it's a bigger number, 10% is a higher number, but it's over spending and not over budget. And then for wages, we talked about 3% of course, that's a raise, right? So that's not gonna be over 2022, that's a raise. And then that would be inside of it. So I tried to just type this up because I know it's a change for department heads, so I thought it'd be helpful for them to have an illustration. So
And the discussion, the back and forth that Corey and I had with this is you are going to run into some issues going with expenditures because some expenditures aren't made until the fourth quarter. It just various things you're going to run into on expenditures. And if you're doing expenditures, we also discussed, you should be looking at current year expenditures as much as you can because you don't want to go from 22 to 24 because we're looking at 24 now. So to get a more true picture of expenditures is 23. I can give you an example. If you talk about highway department, sheriff's department, those types of things, they may have money in reserve that they may not spend for 2 or 3 years. So it doesn't look like they've spent it,
Right.
but they have a plan to spend it. I personally, as the father, I feel easier saying 10% over the previous year's budget. For all of those reasons, that would just be my thought as the dad.
I can tell you though, Bree was always nice enough to send us the chart that's got actuals for as many, like the previous 3 years where we have a full year of actual and the requested budget. And then everything that's in the current year. And this is exactly how I based my questions on. If it hasn't exceeded 10%, I don't even ask a question. And so this, to me, this is just a guideline. It's not setting anything in stone. And there's, for example, I know the clerk's office, they're going to have between $250,000 to $300,000 of voting machine type purchases. And so theirs is going to be higher. We already know that. And so she may not have to come in either for that, but it's just a little more efficient, cleaner. And, I just want to emphasize, it says it there, but up to 3% because we don't know exactly what that's going to be, but I'm fine with this.
So if I word it, up to 3% on wages, up to 10% in your other line items, to be realistic?
I would just give them this. I mean, I spent like 2 hours drilling this out for them. Like I made examples and all that, so it'd be really easy, hopefully for them to see what we're doing.
The 3% should be within the 10%.
What?
The 3% is within the 10%.
It's 10 total.
It's all part of the budget.
So basically, they just look at their,
Keep it simple, like the letter we send out is, here's council's guidelines for 2024 budgets. They're asking up to a 3% in
So-
wages and be realistic on your,
well, what we were saying is if they're within the 10% of the total fund, so we're not looking at each line item, we're just looking at the total fund, right? So if the whole fund is less than a 10% increase over previous year spending, we want to empower the department heads and not even need to meet with them. As long as they're in that total, like it keeps everybody in their own lane. Our lane is big picture. Department heads, your lane is your department. There's no way us second guessing your line by line. This doesn't make sense, right? So the idea here is we just are empowering them. As long as you, so we'll use Brad because he's sitting here. I don't remember what, but if you had one fund that has $1 million spent last year, then if this year your budget is under 1,100,000, we don't even need to meet, like done. It's like, that would be the goal.
And the wages will be in there. So you put, we said up to 3%. So put 3% in there for the wages. And then when your whole budget's done, if it doesn't exceed 10% over, we don't need to.
comment. I mean, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the fact that 3% is probably going to be very low in terms of increases. I mean, inflation for the first 3 months of the year has sat around 6%. So it's not a true increase
It's at
on
4.
performance, and it's not even a cost of living increase. I just want you guys to keep that in mind. So by offering up to 3%, you're actually asking employees to take a pay cut based on what the current expenses in the world are.
Well, last year, they ranged 8 to 14%, depending on where you were in the pay scale. And again, I don't know a company around that gives wage increases based on inflation numbers, because a lot of times those are temporary. But we were cognizant of what was going on, and last year we gave a very large raise.
We did.
And we gave a pretty solid raise the year before, and even 3% is solid. I can tell you, my company's not giving that. So I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but we can't give 8 to 15% raises every year. I mean, and so we do that this year, and when we see what happens next year, and if it's appropriate to go more than that next year, and it works out, then we do that. But I think we did a lot last year to try to, address those situations, but that cannot be an every year thing.
My concern would be, why did you pick 2022 as your reference base as opposed to what's actually happening this year?
Because of what Tony said, the problem with 2023 is you're partway through the year, so departments don't always spend evenly. So you might have a lot of money spent in November, October. So it's a lot more complicated for the department heads to try and say, what are we at through the year, proportionalize it out and multiply it. I mean, that would be more accurate, but you have a lot more math involved.
Well, you're already behind the curve by way of your consideration by pushing the approval date forward.
Well, which is why you said 10%, right? Because that's a bigger number, right? So if your inflationary pressures this year, I think just last month they came out at 4%. So we had income growth to the county in the form of lit tax and property tax of about 5% each. So if you exceed more than 5%, you're getting bigger than your income. So this is be a 2-year switch. That's where the 10 came from.
Honestly, though, again, this is a guideline. It's not
Right.
concrete and stone. It's just
Basically, if you can meet that, we don't need to meet with you. Like we're happy with that.
because again, ultimately, this will be my 3rd time through this process, and that's the way this is exactly the way I've done it when it comes to me asking questions. And most cases, I don't have any questions. They all do that.
And we spent 3 days going line by line and really didn't solve any problems.
You don't solve it. There's just no reason for that.
And so the 3% is a guidance, and the 10% total is just a guidance.
So I guess I'll make that motion then, that we use this guidance, and then I would say we just use this sheet if spend a lot of time putting all the numbers in there to try and make it easy for people. So I guess you don't have to use that, but if you want to.
Bree, is that more helpful or no?
I'll do it good one.
Well, is it more helpful? I mean, you have
I mean,
to
if you want to summarize,
relay the
Well,
info.
I think it's confusing, honestly. You have to remember, like, we have 30 departments. And yes, they all turn in a budget, but that's not like their sole job. Like, you have the sheriff's department, you have highway, they're out. So it's like, yeah, they turn in a budget, but I feel like we'll get a lot of phone calls, like, so that's why we usually try to keep
Sure.
it simple of,
Actually,
you 10%, you can go up to 10% over your
to expenditure.
22.
well, first of all, if that number doesn't, they need to put in a realistic budget and figure it out. But I mean, if their budget's $100,000, then we're saying what,
That'd be 110.
$110,000. And if it's there, there's no questions. If it's above that, then it's above that. I mean, we're just, and if it looks like there's a trend, then we'll see that.
We'll just have to be ready for the phone calls when they call and ask us what's going on.
And I
That
think
happens
maybe
regardless.
put something in the letter of like, to remember to look at your 23 numbers. I mean, if you
Yeah.
budgeted 5,000 for gas in 2023, but obviously gas prices have gone up, you need to still be mindful of the numbers this year. So that's where I think the 22 is gonna throw people off, because I know when I first read this was like, well, if I'm budgeting for 24, why am I looking back at 22? And obviously we all know that every invoice that we pay has went up since last year. It's like you're skipping a whole year.
I mean, Tony and I were kind of going back and forth on emails a little bit, and I think the most like truly accurate way to do it would be some kind of an average between the 2022 and the halfway through 2023. But I just think from what you're saying, we're going to lose people. Like it's,
Oh, yeah.
so that's why it's just like, all right, let's just do 2022, make it 10% of what you spent, not what you budgeted, and go from there.
Some of that stuff.
If they're over, they're over and you call them in.
Yeah, and if they're, yeah, exactly.
And maybe by August, September, they'll have a better number than what they turned in June.
Sounds
Right.
And they-
Makes a lot of sense.
Because we're not telling them, you're not really saying, stay within 10%. You're saying, be realistic.
Yep.
And if your true needs are over the 10%,
Then we'll talk.
then we talk and have the workshop like we have in the past.
And
If it is not, then
again, I've done this for the last 2 years and it really has not created a bunch of questions for me.
And that 10% is for their total budget. They can, within the line items, if one stays the same, one goes up 20%, whatever in the line items, doesn't matter. That 10% is for the total budget. And if it's over that, then yeah, we'll talk and everything. But if it's under
Most
that,
departments, the largest expense is wages. That is the largest expense is wages. Highway department could be a little bit different. They've got, obviously a lot of equipment and things like that, but most of them are the highest expense. is
I think what
wages.
Bob just said, which is what I said earlier, if you say 10% over your previous year's budget, that's going to tell them something to look at. If you say 10% over your 22 or 23 expenditures, that's where they're going to get confused. I think, like Bob said, if you're saying 10% over, then you'll have to come in and talk. If it's 10% under that, that's the part that concerns me with.
It's just better to use actual numbers though. And you've said every year, we don't spend our entire budget, which is.
Yeah, you never
I
will.
would say is
If
true.
we ever do, we're probably in trouble.
And that's good.
Yeah.
But. it
Well, the
could be-
point of concern that I have is that you're including wage increases into a budget that was 2 years out of date. And secondly, that it's a catch-22, that we don't really know what the cost increases for 23 were. So when you compare apples to apples, you're not really comparing apples to oranges.
But again, the highest expense for almost every department is wages. It's wages. I mean,
And we can give them
the
whatever
10% more than-
whatever guidance you guys end up telling us to give them is what we're going to give them. And if they don't understand that part and they all go over, then you're just gonna have more
I
departments.
mean, I'll tell you again, this is how I based my questions the last 2 years, and I typically have had not a bunch of questions for almost all departments.
So we might end up being
They've-
fine.
They've fallen within that
I guess we'll
easily.
see.
I think your carrot is basically just like, we're trying to empower them, so department heads, you figure it out for yourself. If we don't care about the individual line items, we care about the grand total at the bottom. And if that grand total is within 10% of 2022 spend, we don't need to meet. So that's the carrot. It's like, we don't need to subject you to sitting here and going through every single line and saying, why did you have $4,000 instead of $4,300? So if we can just get away from that and look at the big picture, that's the carrot. You guys are empowered, you're in charge. I don't care what you do with your individual line items, your total needs to be within this amount.
Yeah. Not micromanaging.
Exactly.
Anything.
But ultimately, again, these are guidelines. They're not setting anything in stone.
Right.
So have you worded your motion? Yeah.
So I'll make the motion that we adopt this, the up to 10% over 2022 expenditures and 3% of wages over 2023 budget. Yeah, I guess that's all it is.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the guidelines as presented. All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay, and then the last one is the one that I think we put the most effort into, but I think we're all on the same, I don't think there's a whole lot of discussion on that one yet. This is the local income tax reallocation and reduction. So the net effect of all this would be the income tax dropping from 1.624% to 1.6%. Within that, you would be increasing the funding to the Lit Public Safety and the PSAP, which are both law enforcement's, which gets you to a total of about $571,000 of new dollars to law enforcement agencies. Of that, 190 of it goes to dispatch, which will solve the problem they've had with not being able to collect fees off people's landlines. And 229 would go to the jail for the sheriff's department, which would fix the cash flow issue that they have on that side. Then Decatur gets an extra 90, roughly 98, 99,000. Bern gets an extra 33,000. Geneva gets about 14,000 and Monroe gets about 5,000. And your rates inside of that 1.6 would now be the same 0.6 for the certified chairs, the same 0.4 for economic development. Public safety goes from 0.25 up to 0.29. The PSAP is instituted, so from 0 to 0.02. And then the property tax relief goes from 0.374 to 0.290.
The only thing I will say on that, we did have a 2-hour work session with Darren Bates. And once again, as the old dad, I don't, like, I'm not totally adverse to this, but what I would say is Darren has said that property tax relief portion of Lit would have gone away probably in 3 years. However, when the state passed these 2 laws to try to look better because of the high property taxes, he said that may make it 5 years out before they do away with that. So at some point, we feel like property tax relief will go away. And I realize that 0.24 is not a necessarily tremendous number, but Darren did say that he would leave it the same for a year or two and see what happens. I just want to throw that out there because that is what he said. But 1.6, not the end of the world, I don't think. But at the same time, I'm frugal. I don't trust the state. Always be pessimistic about the state is the exact words that Darren used. So in saying that, that's just me as auditor. It's up to council to have the discussion. And Corey, I think you have the numbers there. How many dollars does that, do we, I don't have it in front of me.
So
How many dollars are affected by that 0.24?
So basically it is a $799,000 difference. I will say this is where it gets into the weeds, as you know, Tony, already, but basically that 0.29 is a property tax credit. But because a lot of people are not seeing the credits at all because they're already hitting the property tax cap, we're not actually seeing the benefit of that money. So the state wants us to get rid of it eventually. So this is basically taking roughly a fourth bite out of it towards that point, and should basically result in a net of more money to the county and less taxes in the long run. So all in all, it's kind of a win-win, and we've still got 0.29 to look at in future years.
And keep in mind too, it's a process every year if you change it, but you can change it every year. If you go through the coming years and you see that it, well, we need to do this, it's more difficult. If you had tried to take a bigger cut of that, then it would be more difficult if you were in trouble to then try to increase tax again. So, it's not a huge bite. It is a small bite, and we can look at it next year. And if it's deemed that it needs to be changed again, it just means Julie Marie and I have to get all the necessary paperwork and the notices and the dates because this will end up requiring the 30-day notice to the other taxing units and so forth and so on, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Darren had said you probably want to do it at your July meeting and actually vote it approval so that you have the 30 days and you would be able to finalize it in August. Because if something is wrong and they have to send it back, you have another 30-day window. I think did everybody hear that the same way?
Mhm.
So that's where we're at, and it's up to council and anyone else that chooses to discuss it. I don't even know what we need at this time, to be honest with.
I think basically we're just getting the ball rolling, that this is the direction that we're going. Then we'll have to have the votes of the income tax council and all that, which this body is the majority of.
So this is what you're looking at and as a direction, but the actual vote on it will be later.
I think there's a series of votes, if I understand correctly, but this would at least get the ball rolling. So I guess I'll go ahead and make the motion for all those numbers I just said.
Second.
Motion and second to approve you're talking about lit tax cut rate, tax rate cut.
Allocation.
So it's
The
like,
allocation.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And again, this actually Julie Marie and I both will kind of work on whenever it needs to come before the body to be official, to send out to, even though the other taxing units, doesn't really matter what they say because you guys are 55%, so it's going to happen, but they still have to be notified.
The public.
And we have to have certain dates, and we'll kind
We'll
of
figure it out.
look over that and realize what we need to do on that regard. So.
Yes.
if you don't mind, I do want to just say something here. This has been a real change of a year. You know, if you go a year ago to today, we are in 100% different world. And I just want to take a minute to say thank you to everybody on council and the auditor's office and the commissioners, new and old, that we are being much more collaborative than we were a year ago. We're making progress. We're talking, we're debating, we're discussing. It's just an entirely different environment than it has been the last, honestly, 3 years since I've been on here. So just want to take a minute to say thank you to everybody for the amount of time people are putting into it, the analysis, the thinking, the analyzing, just, it's a lot of work. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad we could finally get to this point.
I think we should offer a special thank you to you for your extra work and diligence in this whole
I was
process.
going to say thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Maybe. Simplify it.
But there wasn't anything else.
Well, also,
That's it.
just to clarify too, there's only two options. We had the problem to solve of the PSAP running, or the E911 running out.
Yep.
It was either option of raise the income tax or
Do
finagle
this.
the numbers and reallocate our rates in here.
Kind of kills like four birds with one stone here.
Yeah.
Well, then the other thing that needs to be brought up, once again, Adams County, Darren commended us as a county for the past several years that we have maintained a 1.624 income tax, where many of our surrounding counties are 2.1 or even higher, because they've had to raise to make up for things that, whatever it may be. So while Corey mentions the collaboration and so forth and so on, I want to throw out there that our office has been very transparent since I came in. We've had experts come in. We've sent all you guys all the information that we possibly could, the 1782s, everything else, because we feel like it's our job to be transparent. And I appreciate the fact that you folks listen to our office when it comes to all this as well. And we are currently, I believe, the 30th lowest in the state income tax rate. I think I'm correct on
Yep.
that.
With this, we're number 30 out of 92.
So,
Which is
so
good.
we're doing a good job. And, you know, if you put out there for the public consumption, that even though we are that low, we want to try to help taxpayers out. And if this comes to fruition, we would actually lower some of their taxes a little bit.
Yep.
Even though we're already low, we're already conservative. So I just wanted to piggyback off of John's comment on that one. I think we're ready for Michelle. Dennis? Was that all? Anybody else have any?
Mike's supposed to be here?
Clayton's here.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, I think Michelle was first anyway, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, yeah. He's going to be here after 10.
No, Michelle was before this anyway.
I understand.
So what are you saying?
Michelle's up.
Well, I think Clayton's part of that as well. And so.
One of the things that we've been in discussion with is public transportation service. We currently have a 5310, which offers transportation for disabled and elderly. We've maintained that for many years. Michelle has worked very hard with the state to provide a public transportation system, which we feel would benefit many people, even outside of the handicap and disabled area. So we've also been in discussions with the mayor and several city council members for the opportunity to take advantage of that facility, which we already have council on aging at the Old Northwest School, which is the Merit Center, and now looking at adding on to that for the purpose of public transportation, which would be 5311. So if you want to talk about that a little bit and explain some of the details of that.
Of the public transportation.
Yeah.
So just last month, welcome, Bob. I don't think I've ever met you, Michelle. Just last month, we celebrated our 50th year. So we've been around since 1973, transitioning from a small house in Bern to the old hospital, to the old Lincoln School, to the service complex, to the Merit Center. So one of our big goals is to find a place to finally call home, to be stable in. And with us starting public transportation, we really need to have a secure home base to run that out of. One of those aspects of that, I mean, our current offices, I joke around that I'm the new principal in that building. And I tell the clients that come in, if they get in trouble, they have to come see me, which they think is funny. But we've really been a welcoming agency in the Merit Center, and we want that to be our base. One of the issues we've had over these 50 years is we've never had any type of garage or secure place for our vehicles, and we have had theft and parts stolen off of them just in the last year even. So when I was working with the city to relocate there, I was excited at the possibility of all the space that was in there. At that time, there was only one other tenant. Now I think there's 8 or 9 with more coming. So it's developing into a really multi-use, wonderful building. We would like to build a garage on the site, and I have the money saved for that already. It's just the location and more of the security is what I'm looking for. And that's kind of where Stan and Dan have talked together along with City Council about an interlocal agreement to purchase just a small ½ acre of land on the Merit Center so that if I build my garage, currently I only have a 2-year lease there, and I've got 6 months left in it, I believe. And if we were to purchase land that would, and maybe get a longer lease, I could put down roots there and have a secure future for a $100,000 garage that I want to build and have a longer lease to go along with it. I do have some renderings. Should I hand those out to them?
Yeah.
To them. I just got them today from the architect, so I'm sorry.
$100,000 garage.
I was gonna do, so originally before public started, my garage was a 30 by 50 4-bay, and I wanted one here and one in Bern. Things change in that, welcome, in that I need to purchase additional vehicles. So Yes, yeah. So I'm down, well, I'm going from 2 garages to 1, but I'm bumping up the size because I'll probably never be able to build another garage because I've been saving for it. So I went from a 4-bay to an 8-bay, and you can notice, I think it's the third page on there, kind of the location I'm talking about. It's currently on the Merit Center property. There are 2 structures already there. The north structure is utilized currently by Decatur Church of God for their HERO program. So this would eliminate the south building. And as you can kind of see, the architect put in green kind of where the location would be. It ends up being 0.62 acre because keeping that north building like the city wants, I have to kind of be strategic where I could put a 100-foot long building. So it would either go in that whole little front plot or knock down the south building and put it where it's on the diagram. So I had originally put forth a ARPA proposal to do some renovations inside the Merit Center to do the courtyard. If given the choice, I would go this route for now, even though that would benefit a lot of people. This would secure our future there and help us get started in the right direction for public transportation.
So when we say like purchase, like what kind of, also talking about purchasing the land?
So, first of all, Michelle's been doing a heck of a job there. Even with the senior center, there's a lot of foot traffic in there.
Thank you.
And, you know, over the years, we've accepted some tenants that came from this building because of the lack of space and have moved to that building over there. So it's less about purchasing the land and it's more about a commitment to helping us move forward with the building. When they asked about this about, I don't know, 6, 9, 12 months ago, I don't know what it was, they wanted a long-term lease. And it wasn't that we didn't want to do that because it's a great program and she's doing a great job there. It was more about we had boiler and chiller issues to the tune of about $350,000. And the parking lot needs to be redone. So it was more about, would you guys mind helping us with these things in order to give us, to be able to give the long-term commitment? So it wasn't about, we didn't want her there. We want her there for sure. We want this program to go on. It was our commitment to the building itself. If we're not going to fix the, if we're not going to spend the $350,000 on the boilers and chillers, we don't even need the building because we're spending about $60,000 to $80,000 putting Band-Aids on it every year on the boiler system.
So in the building itself, is it, I mean, aside from the boilers and chillers and stuff, is it in pretty good shape? And
Yeah, we had an outside firm look at the building and everything. The building's very sound and the roof's good too, so.
Yeah, it's in excellent shape. All the classrooms are in great shape. I mean,
so then is that what you're saying then? You're looking for us to help with that stuff? And
Well, yeah, the boilers, chillers, and then we need to seal and restripe the parking lot because if we are gonna put the garage out there with traffic coming in for the early learning center and all that stuff, we need to make, because right now it's just free for all in the parking lot. It looks
Right.
terrible, so.
the parking lot would be done after the building, I assume?
What's that?
Parking lot would be done after the building, I assume?
Right.
But yeah, Fred, in its most basic sense, the interlocal agreement would basically be in consideration for the county providing funds for the HVAC and other improvements at the Merit Center. The city would then be providing the Council on Aging with a long-term lease and that land on which they can build a garage. Now,
So the lease would be just a lease with no actual, it'd be the cost of the lease and the purchase of the land in lieu of, we'd be providing funds for repairs.
The lease would be for space in the building. The land would become
County.
county.
But what I'm getting at is we wouldn't actually pay for the lease at a monthly fee. We'd be helping with the repairs of the building.
Yes, for now. If, like right now, she has a free lease because she's the administrator for the building. If the building gets more and more active, we may have to hire a full-time person to be there. So, but that's, that's not where we're at right now.
It'll be a long-term home, then the rights to the land, build the garage. And if you could tell them more about the public transportation.
absolutely. So it would be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And it would serve anyone in Adams County. So currently we do 60 and over and disabled adults. We would be able to help anyone, and it's a first come, first served basis. So if Fred, if you needed to go to Walmart and you called and 5 minutes later, Corey, you called and needed to go to the doctor, Fred, you're going first. It's first come, first served, so we can't prioritize. Currently, our operations, about 70% are for medical, so this would expand into the workforce. It would help if their hours of work were between 6 and 6, we could get them to and from work. It's going to expand that. The possibilities are endless. Kids are going to be able to participate in more after-school activities because now they're going to have a way home if they're going before 6, where the bus stops at 3. So, and it's a secure place that parents won't have to worry about that their kids are going to make it home safe or not. Like it is, we had the opportunity back in 2007 and NDOT approved Adams County back then, but the commissioners at the time weren't ready for the program. And since then, not a single county has been added in the 16 years through NDOT. So this opportunity started in 2021. Tim Ramsey and I were doing $1 million Anthony Wayne grant. That would have provided the seed money for the vehicles for a garage. And then we were working with NDOT to then keep the program going. We didn't get the grant, but it kind of piqued NDOT's interest, in my opinion. And we've been working with Todd Jennings, who's the program manager for this. And he's been wonderful to deal with. And he has given us, we're the only county in the whole state getting this opportunity. So we are, possibility down the road would have to merge with another system because they would like hubs more than just single counties, but he's given us the chance. So we'll be in a 2-year demonstration phase through them. So we will get $50,000 in federal money, both years 1 and 2. After that, state pitches in money, we'll get more federal money. So we're looking at easy $300,000 brought into the county after the 2 years, plus the rider fare. I don't know the exact fares yet. They will go by miles. So when someone would call and book a trip, I would tell them your trip's going to be $5.20. Your trip's going to be $10. So they would know that before they would ride what their fare. But it's going to be a huge blessing to Adams County.
This would add, you have 2 buses, I think, in Bern.
We actually have 3 in Bern and 1 here right now.
Okay, so that add another one.
Actually going to add 3.
Okay. How many in Bern?
I have 3 in Bern and 1 here right now, but I'm going to add 3 more. So it's probably going to be 4 here and 3 in Bern.
Okay.
Once we start.
So it'd be community-wide, rural,
Absolutely, yes.
everywhere.
Yep.
So sounds like we're getting some funding from federal and state levels, and sounds like you can call and be picked up, and there are fees associated to it, but
Yep.
is there also regular routes then as well?
So it's not going to be like the City Link in Fort Wayne where they have stops. Ours is still going to be, you have to call within a day advance to get on the schedule. So the drivers will have schedules.
Kind of like a taxi almost, basically.
Kind of, it's just like it is right now. Well, people call, like, we have standing appointments. Every Thursday we take Mary Ann to get her hair done at 2 o'clock, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we take them to and from dialysis. So we can have standing appointments. So like if someone was going to work, we would just be ready. We would be there. Or if you needed to go to Walmart tomorrow and you called today, we would get you on and tell you we'll be there at 10:20 to get you. You can have an hour, and we'll be back to get you when you're finished. So it's not, I think they call it a fixed demand versus the ones that just go around. We don't have enough vehicles for that yet. But I should be getting 3 more vehicles in the fall. And that's another blessing from NDOT. NDOT we were on the slate to get another small transit a year ago, and we're way low on the list, and NDOT had an agency back out, so they're letting us get it, which is awesome. And we're also getting another low floor mini for free, which is $69,000. And then I'm buying one at cost for another $69,000. So they've been wonderful, so supportive of us.
So I will say this, for me, trying to be good stewards within the county, obviously, that's something we've just discussed a lot of, but also, I really believe, I was at a meeting, I know John was at, Dan was at, Stan, were you at that one, or not, just recently at that presentation? Anyways, it really shows, some of the, I talked a lot about growth, and I'll tell you, we need to have that. We need to have growth in this county. There will be some other problems coming down the road for us that really we need to start looking at now, growth being one of them. just for the sheer population of things. And people look a lot at, of course they look at taxes and stuff, and so we are trying to be, again, good stewards with that, but also they look at what services provided. And so, we need to do things in this county, I think, for economic development, and that's, getting housing, which we've are taking steps to do, and something like this, and like it or not, people look at those services, they look at our schools, and so frankly, all of our schools should be working together to try to have the best education possible, and have a great reputation in this county. So, I think it's great, Michelle, and, I have no problem
So,
with this.
so this would come out of ARPA money we're talking about?
For the land, yeah, for the garage, it's coming out of, so the last 2 years, I've been able to get seeded money. That is due to the match required for NDOT, so that Stan and the commissioners put that together so that we have to have a 50% match. So we already have that met for NDOT standards. So the garage for the 100,000, I have saved from that, as well as the vehicle costs. But the ARPA money would be from.
It's actually, you need the money for the repairs of the building.
But from us, that would come from ARPA though.
Yes.
And how much, you probably said it, but when you put it together, roughly our piece of the pie?
I think Stan was saying, 50% of what these improvements were, and you were saying up to a certain amount, I think.
Yeah, we, the CETA money that we reallocated as of 2022 was $100,000 a year that we put towards Council on Aging for the purpose of putting a transportation program together. So that money that she has available, $100,000 in 22 and $100,000 again this year, is what she's using for the garage and vehicles. But then there's also the federal match, which will come in towards that. And then hopefully also after 2 years, we will be eligible for a state match towards this program. But then there will also be some user fees associated with it. So to put this whole program together, we just feel like is a real strong economic development benefit for the county, because it is a countywide service.
So is there a request then from us above and beyond the CEDA money that's already in the CEDA budget?
Not,
The whole funds.
yes.
Okay, and how much is that?
Request from the ARPA funds, but not necessarily over and above in the CEDA budget. So we will request, well, and I shouldn't speak for the other commissioners, but I guess in my mind, I would see us with the same ask of the CEDA budget
About 100,000 from ARPA is what you're thinking?
next year. But yeah, then from the ARPA funds would be to build the garage.
And how much is that, you think?
What's the HVAC quote?
You were talking.
Your building's garage was.
And I think what you said was up to.
For the property, yeah, I'm sorry.
Up to 200,000, but it was like half of the heaters, chillers, and then the plug.
So the skaters obviously pitching in as well.
Is that? Yeah. It'll
So it's like
be
Jurassic.
somewhere between 150 and 200,000, where I think the half will be. each.
Okay, so the CEDA money plus maybe another 150 or 200,000 from ARPA is what you're asking? Okay, gotcha.
And basically, Corey, right now, there was a steering committee that had county council, city councils, commissioners, and then county and city attorneys on it that city council basically just at this point provided approval that steering committee sit back down and hammer out the fine details for an interlocal agreement. I think if county council at this point wants to only approve that, but yeah, the estimated cost was going to be, I think, up to 200,000 for the county because of the quotes that the city had previously got for HVAC and other improvements.
My question on this is, will this, because remember we had all these difficulties before, if commissioners will need to approve this first, or you'll need a resolution and so forth to pass a certain amount?
Correct. Essentially, when you determine exactly how much needs to be contributed by the council after another steering committee meeting, you'll need to take that to the commissioners, and they will vote on it. If they vote to approve that amount, You just let us know, and then the council will ratify it and make the appropriation. And I will include the date of the commissioner approval in the resolution adopted by council to make sure it's all taken care of.
I kind of want to be cautious a little bit on, not to speak out of turn for the commissioners, but early on when some of the projects were approved out of ARPA, for example, WebEx, chiller, generator, a certain amount was approved for that. And I think the commissioners have discussed giving the council a head up. Some of those might go over. So at some point, we don't know when all the invoices will come in, but you may have to make a decision whether to continue paying for the above out of ARPA or some other fund. Am I correct in stating that, Stan? Did I say that correctly on some of those?
The basic ask is, right now, is for the property.
Well, no, but I'm talking about the other ones that went over, and my caution on this is make sure that it's high enough that you don't have the same issue. So maybe if you think it's going to be under 200,000 and it comes before commissioners for up to 200,000, then you can go that route. We just don't, again, not speaking for you all, but we don't want to run into the problem like, for example, WebEx and chiller and all, where we already know once all the invoices come in, it's going to be more than what was initially passed by ARPA. So by statute, we have to get it passed to pay for the above.
I think though too, from a county perspective, once the quotes are in and once we come to an agreed number, it's going to be a set number in the interlocal agreement itself.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a fluctuating number that could.
That's fine.
could go
It's gonna be
over.
a one-time.
gonna be
That's
a
why I think I included up to
That's fine.
200,000.
I just wanted to make sure that
Could we speed up
Doing it
the
correct.
process and not have to wait another month by setting the limit right now and voting on it up to $200,000 and based on the 50% quotes that you have current up-to-date quotes, don't you?
We do, we have one, it's hard to find that big of a boiler quote. We have one good quote, and then we have the quote for the surface too. So we need to get one more boiler and chiller quote.
So I guess could we approve up to $200,000 and then the
Yes.
commissioners can do what they do, so we're not waiting a month?
Yes, we've done that before. You can make an approval now, and I'll have a resolution for you actually to sign, but it'll be with a retroactive effective date.
And once that number is discovered and
Two questions on that. One, do you remember, is it like 3 million that we have left?
2.6 is going to be what we're going to have left.
And it'll be a little bit less than that because you said we're going to go over on some stuff, so.
Right, and I was going to update you that during
Okay.
all that.
Okay, the other question I was going to ask, I see Renee sitting back there. I don't know if you're on the agenda or if you had mentioned something about this thing, I thought at one point, but I just want to bring that into the loop because they're looking at a community crossings, right? And that would be like up to like $1 million or so that you're looking at out of that potential same fund. So I just want to keep all this conversation going. He's been working with Judge Conrad on a replacement instead of the drug court. They're looking at another program that is more of an in-house type thing. He did it in Louisiana once. They're back here, so they're trying to build something out, but you got a big cost up front of the building. So I just want to, I don't know, before we jump into spending, I just want to make sure we're looking at the whole picture.
I think there's a meeting coming up as well on that specific thing that Bree and I are going to on the 18th with the advisory board for community corrections with the judge and so forth to discuss possibility of the opioid money going toward that as well. That's not my call. They're just going to have a discussion on that. So not sure how much that would bring, but it could help if that's the direction the bodies go.
Have you projected the additional cost by way of vehicles and staffing to support the program that you're proposing?
Absolutely. So I had to put a preliminary budget in with NDOT, and my budget currently is 150, and expanding to public for the first year or two is $100,000 extra. And then after that, I was picturing around $305,000 budget. So after the second year, state of Indiana will pitch in. So the amount of CEDAP money that I would need after 3 years is hopefully going to go down as the federal and state money kicks in.
And would it be your intent with 8 bays to store the local stable that you have locally, or you're going to keep the cars regionally by way of burn? And
I'm
You said-
hoping to, well, it's hard to know. When I have the garage here and my pickups are down in Geneva, I don't know if I want to have my burn drivers come to Decatur, pick up their car and go back to Geneva. Currently, I'm renting office space inside the South Adams Senior Center, and we have for years to be able to have a small office in there and park our vehicles. So that's when my original idea to build 2 garages would have been perfect, because I could have housed half there and half here. I just need to use that funding for vehicles now instead of. Absolutely. And then I think, Dan, when I presented to city council, I think roughly currently, it was around 68% of our current trips are in the Decatur city limits, with the other 32% within the county. Now, definitely that's going to expand as our service expands, but I would have more vehicles here than I am going to have anywhere else.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Further discussion?
I think to me, it's a perfect example of county government working together with city government to provide a service for the benefit of all county residents. They've got the facility and the opportunity. We can join with them in maintaining the property and the building, still use federal and state grant funding available to provide a service that's going to be ongoing for the benefit of economic development for the county.
Yeah, it's
So
2 purposes. It's
it's just got a lot of positives.
given that group a final resting place. They're there. And then a community-wide new service that's never been available to anybody here.
It's going to be a huge blessing.
I'd make a motion to set the limit up to $200,000 out of ARPA to give everybody else a heads up, the commissioners, and start planning.
So it's contingent upon the commissioners also approving it.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
John and Fred to approve an additional $200,000 of ARPA money to the Council on Aging activities. So all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Thanks for the collaboration. I mean, we've seen more in the last year between city and counties than I think we've seen in a lot of years. So we do obviously appreciate it. Yes,
Well, I still have things to.
Right, when do you think you guys will have more of a finalized number? I just don't want to run out of funds before we make the, sorry, I was asking.
You talking to me?
Him, sorry.
We hope to present to the commissioners June 6th, county council.
Clayton.
So next month's meeting, okay. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
We still have that. We have some, and then we have my salary ordinance and stuff at the last.
I do need to offer a note of apology for missing your meeting the other day. I posted it on a piece of paper next to my bedside table and failed to put it on the calendar. But I did listen to your meeting yesterday, and it gave me a totally different perspective about the dynamics of our group. It's very revealing, and sorry I wasn't there.
Clayton, are you prepared for the freeholder discussion?
Yeah. Are you doing those?
I was going to call him when he was finished with
Oh,
this discussion.
there's something else we're talking about? I think the third session, we already have their time with that.
I've still got to, maybe we gotta get this thing moving. I don't know how to get it report this week either. Plus I'm louder.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I guess the commissioners in the drainage board have just been discussing, so pursuant to Indiana code, the drainage board can consist of the executives or the commissioners, or it can consist of at least one executive, and up to 4 other members. And those other members can be freeholders. I think, and Stan can talk more of the commissioners and the drainage board's ideas, but I think the idea was to have 2 commissioners, and then attempt to add 3 freeholders, which would be just Adams County residents with knowledge of drainage that they can add to the drainage board and then making decisions.
Yeah, the proposal that was brought to us by the surveyor was 2 commissioner, a total of 5 with 2 commissioners on the board, on the drainage board, and then 3 freeholders, 1 north, 1 central, 1 south. And those, so we would have a total of 5 people on that drainage board. So that was what was presented to us. So that would add a stipend for those 3 freeholders. But that was the recommendation of our surveyor, Mike Whirl.
So what do we need to do?
So as far as the budget, we would be adding a stipend for those 3 freeholders.
Of how much?
This is not an action item.
I think it's 25 each, I think. Or
25
is the stipend for drainage board 25?
per person per meeting.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's what Jackie said.
I think it's 25. So obviously they only budgeted for 3. So it could run low by the end of the year if they're adding, well, effectively, there'll be 5, they're worth 3, so you have 2 extra overall. So they may, I don't know when that will happen and go over, but at some point it may require an additional to be able to pay that stipend.
But yeah, like I say, that was on the recommendation of the surveyor to add freeholders and we would like to proceed with that recommendation.
So that's coming, we would just have to approve $50 a month.
Per meeting, isn't it?
It's $25, and I don't know that they do.
25 per person per meeting.
For 2 people? So $50 a month?
Yes.
I assume they're gonna meet monthly, so, I mean, it depends on when they have a need for,
We
I
currently meet twice
Twice a month.
think there had been discussion about maybe once if it's possible, but
What's that?
It's $25 a meeting.
Correct.
Per person, yeah. So it would really be 100 since they meet twice a month.
and I don't know what's currently in there at this particular moment.
But we're not approving the amount.
You're approving, I think what you're approving is
The addition.
allowing
Take another
for a
raise.
5-member drainage board, correct?
That's correct.
But part of that is knowing that down the line, you may have an additional to pay the stipends for that increase.
Unless
So,
it's coming out of their rates, we would be approving the money.
so we're, so for 1,900 in there now, you'll have 100 a month extra.
So
Are we approving the money or the appointments?
The appointments, you're approving them to go to a 5-member board.
But knowing we will have to pay for it.
Perhaps,
That's
there may be an additional, but you're really approving them to have the 5-member board,
yeah,
correctly?
and we would come for the additional.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve and get some more diversification at the bare minimum. Representation.
John and Bob?
Bob, second. Moved and seconded to approve the additional members to the regional sewer district board. Okay, get it right? All those in favor? Opposed?
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Do you want to go ahead with your?
I can, and then we can go back to Joey and Maria if you want to.
Yeah.
Let me get my stuff. I'm losing track of all the paper. There we go.
What would we do without it?
Okay.
You look, where you look for.
We have, and you should have received this, but we've got two transfers. One for the clerk and one for Golden Meadows. We can, yeah, there are only two transfers.
We'll make a
Unless
motion
you
to
have
approve those.
questions. Corey? And Bob? Corey and Bob?
Moved and seconded to approve. What are we doing? Transfers?
Transfers.
Transfers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Doing additional appropriations, yeah.
No, we don't have any additional appropriations, which is actually a good thing. And, you know, just to let, I think I have said this to Corey, maybe some of the other ones, but as it comes to additional appropriations, I rest assured that when Bree and I enter claims for departments and we see something in the red, we contact them. We look to see if there's any transfers that they could possibly do before it ever gets here. We do all of that before you guys see an addition. Did I say that correctly, Bree?
And another thing, just so you guys know, I was talking to Tony about these future ones and what we might try out for the next time we have some, is that maybe on the new forms, again, we're just going to test it for a month and see, but we might put something on there that basically says what was the fund balance last year, what was at the beginning of this year, and what is it projected to be at the end of this year. That way, when we do an additional, we can see, is this a fund that's cash flowing trending positive or cash flowing trending negative before we make that decision. So we're going to,
And some of that will be estimates, conjecture on our part because we can't possibly know the future. But Bree and I have said we will do our best to try to do as best we can on that because that's something we'll have to do. The departments won't be able to do that.
yep.
So we'll do what we can and see if that's what you're thinking of. Okay. I have salary ordinances and I want to do these kind of separately for a particular reason. So if we could do, and these are replacements and so forth and so on. And as a matter of fact, most of these under surveyor are all one person because that person's going to do different things that get paid out of certain funds, different funds. So most of those are the same person. If we can do E911 first for dispatcher for $18.19, retro May 6th, and it's Ashley Rhodes, if we could do that one first.
Separate?
Yeah, I'm going to do them separate, and I've got a reason.
Make a motion to approve the Ashley Rhodes.
Okay. John and Kathy?
All those in favor?
I want the record to show I
Bob?
abstained. That
He's
my
abstaining.
daughter. I want to make, I abstain from the vote. I really didn't.
That's why we did it separate.
Trying to get a pay raise for your daughter. I see how it is.
Listen, I'm out abstaining.
When the paperwork goes around, this will all be on one. Out to the side, you can say nay on
Abstain.
911 or abstain.
Yeah.
Makes sense? So we can do the rest of them together. And like I said, it's one person on all of the surveyor, drainage board, general drain, drainage maintenance, perpetuating cornerstones. And that is Andrew Smitley, $21.75. And then we have, and that's retro to May 8th. And then we have Golden Meadows dietary supervisor, Andrew Hall, retro to April 29th, $20.24. We can do all of those together.
So moved.
Second.
Kathy, Corey.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I got a quick question for Sheriff. You have a lot of turnover in your jailers. Are you fully staffed yet?
Jailers are fully staffed right now, but we have high turnover. My 4.5 years as sheriff, I've been full staff in the jail maybe 6 months out of my 4.5 years. So we have a high turnover in the jail. That's, other than places than that, I don't have a high turnover.
I just asked, it's on here.
Yeah.
A lot. Well, at least you're fully staffed now.
We are right now.
Maybe it stays. Why are they leaving, you know?
They're going.
Is it for officers?
Yeah, they're going to other departments. So this late last year, or earlier this year, I lost 3 going to manufacturing jobs. They're just paying $3, $4, $5 more an hour. And it's, like I said, it's not the greatest job. And there's stress to it. We're starting to find some people that I think are going to stay around. Some are staying around because they want to go into law enforcement. So they're earning their stripes basically in the jail and then hopefully come out and get on one of local apartments. But this year I lost 3 to the private sector just for higher wages.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Is that right? Yeah. Then other matters after you.
Other matters?
No, Julie Marie first.
Julie Marie.
Yes,
She has other matters.
Well,
I do. First of all, briefly, with regards to ARP, ARPA monies, I sent you an email. There was a new roof needed for the annex. Last year, the council decided rather than include it in the maintenance and building department's budget, we'd simply do ARPA funding for it. At the time, it was estimated to be about $100,000. Later, $120,000 was the estimate that was provided in January of 2023, and you conditionally approved the award of that amount of money. There's an updated projected cost of now $145,386. The commissioners have received the estimates for that and have approved that. So if this body is comfortable making that ARPA allocation of $145,386, I have proposed resolution number 12 that would adopt that.
You guys have any sense if it's going to keep doing that?
Well, I've got
It's only the
more.
first half, right? I mean, it looks on the invoice like we're paying half, which is like 72,000 right now.
I think that's the contract.
Okay.
I don't think that amounts to it. That's what, prior to that, we're just estimates, but I think that's actually.
Okay, make sure everybody's okay with it.
We're doing the roof, right? Is that what that is?
The roof, the roof. And it would be proposed resolution 2023-12.
No, they're all approvals, went from 100 to 145. So what wasn't, when we approved it last time for the 120, wasn't anything signed?
What happened, John, was months and months and months and months ago, you all said, we want to go ahead and get the roof out of the way too, out of ARPA. Let's do it for 100,000. At that time, I said, well, Rick doesn't know how much it's going to be because we have to wait until the condensers come in for the chillers. And then we have to wait a period of time to get the right season and everything else. So we lost many months due to that reason. And at the time, it was said, well, let's just do 120,000 instead of the 100. Hopefully that'll be enough. It was not enough because of costs going up for supply, all the issues that everybody's having. The cost went to the 145 that Rick brought in. How many? He had more than one quote. He had 3 quotes. This was the best quote. So it's just over time, it went up that much. And it was more than the 120,000 the council had agreed to, and I forget when that was. It was last year, maybe, August, maybe.
In August, it was 100, In August, you decided that 100, that would be the estimate. And then in January of 2023, you formally said 120, subject to the commissioner's approval. And the commissioners then approved 145,386.
And that quotes didn't come in on that until, when was that, Stan, last month, month before?
That was the final updated quote.
So, and the cost just went up that much.
Part of it was, choosing the contractor was a more complete job and some things in there that were not considered originally. So, in our view, in looking at the contractor quotes, this was the best quote available for the most complete quote.
So is this, if this is approved, this was back in April, so almost a month ago, and it didn't say how long these quotes are valid. Are they still gonna honor this?
Yes, that's the second contract. We will honor that. We asked for that.
Okay,
Yeah, that was asked.
so it won't go up, it's not gonna go up, we're locked in.
It's not fair.
So Julie, when you gave us the 2.6 that was left in ARPA,
Yeah.
Yes.
that counted the 120 already?
No. So I'm going to kind of give you a recap as soon as you guys are done with this. It looks like we're down to about 2.4, and I've got some information on some additional projects that you're going to need to bear in mind.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this. What was it, up to $145,386?
Second.
Alan and Rex.
Okay.
Moved and seconded to approve resolution 2023 for the use of ARPA funds for additional roof repairs. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else?
Well, yes. With regards to ARPA, here's an update. Obviously, we started at $6,949,263. You have adopted and approved 15 different projects, and 2 of them have required supplements. So of all of those projects, you have expended approximately 2/3 of it. You now have, with the commitment to the Council on Aging garage, that commitment, and with having passed the roof for the service complex just now, your balance is $2,406,469.30. As you go forward, though, I need you to bear a few things in mind. The commissioners are considering additional quotes for a request by Parks and Recreation for a bridge repair and repainting project. The last estimate on that was $30,800.
That's the covered bridge, right?
The covered bridge,
Historical
correct.
covered bridge.
Mhm.
Did we, I guess before you go on.
Yes.
Did we already approve that prior? And these are just updated quotes that are in that?
No. What happened in the previous Parks and Recreation request, it included the bridge as well as the pickleball court. The commissioners separated the service complex repairs out from that. And then you subsequently approved $227,790. That is just for the repairs to the service complex. The bridge is separate and the pickleball court is separate. They have not been formally approved for their quotes from the commissioners yet, so
But
those
we
are
did.
still outstanding.
So is
You
that in-
you conditionally said you would approve that. However, we're getting quotes now for more than you previously agreed to approve. So it will have to
Okay,
come back
that's-
before you for approval of the final numbers after the commissioners have
The only
gotten all the
thing,
quotes and decided.
Marie, that the commissioners have approved regarding the pickleball court in order to lock in the prices for the asphalt to lay, so they could lock in that price, and that was like
45, yeah.
$45,000 or something. So they approved that, but I think they were waiting on quotes from Jeremy to,
Correct. So the entire pickleball project has not been formally approved with a bottom line number from the commissioners. Until there is a bottom line number, that gets brought to you and you have to approve on that one. Right now, based upon the information that I'm seeing, it is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like $110,000 for all of the construction and quotes that we're getting. Could be more, could be less. The county will share some of these costs. Jeremy Gilbert advised that the city will be doing some contributions to this, but we don't know how much that is. It may be just some of the maintenance, some of the labor on things. With regards to projects that are requiring additional monies, there are 3. No formal requests have been made as the quotes have not been all submitted and approved to the commissioners. But building and maintenance indicates that they're going to need an additional amount for the HVAC system. Last information I received was it was going to be approximately $27,000 more. They also are going to need additional money for the chillers. I've not gotten any information, so I don't know how much additional that will be. And there's going to be some additional money needed for the WebEx system. Again, no information as to what that is. So please do bear in mind that projects that you have already approved and are going forward are now starting to incur additional expenses. So what looks like we have $2.4 million that we can spend on new projects may not quite be that much. So do bear that in mind as you go forward and consider commitments to additional projects.
And they haven't given you any inclination of the dollar amount whatsoever?
Not on those 3, not on WebEx or, not on WebEx or the chiller. Just the HVAC, the last information I got was about $27,000 was what they were probably going to need. But it has to go through the commissioners. They have the quotes. We have the new procurement and purchasing policy. So certain quotes are required for certain dollar amounts of expenditures. So once that comes through. I will put all of this in a memo so you have the figures in front of you, and that way you can reference that as things come up.
So this might not be doable, but just kind of a thought. What if, because I feel like any more decisions, you really kind of want to think about the whole picture at this point, because it's not just like a bottomless pot anymore. So is it possible to get kind of revised numbers on a lot of those things by next month's meeting? If Renee, if you guys can have your proposal like teed up and like ready with dollar amounts and everything, and then I still really would love the idea of holding to use some to spend down what we would have used CAP funds or CUME funds for, to let those CUME funds build. So it's almost like if we can say, all right, let's hold on to 500 for budget time to use for CUME funds, or whatever number, I'm just making it up, but we know how much that is, we know how much this is, we can kind of make a decision next month about what are we doing with the rest of it. Is that all doable, or?
What will you be looking for money for?
Recovery housing for those struggling with substance abuse, mental health issues here in Adams County.
So it's like tied in with basically kind of replacing drug court, kind of. I mean, it's not a court, but it's.
Working in collaboration with those coming from homelessness, treatment, incarceration, or any life controlling issue that has housing along with job readiness training, job placement assistance, transportation, and counseling services, et cetera, to provide a continuum of care for this demographic of people.
Yeah, I think a request, an ARPA request form was sent that we will need filled out
I'll be there too.
so that Julie Marie actually is the one that processes those, and then she'll go from there.
I'll meet with her at 11:30 about it.
Oh, they're trying to see how much we'd be willing to help. Like, would we do the land, or would we do a building and lease it out to them? Would we, like?
That's all that I had. I will, like I said, send out all information, and with regards to the interlocal agreement on the garage, I'll get you copies of that as soon as it's finalized and formalized. So that's all that I had. Thank you.
Do you guys think that's realistic to try and have nailed down like what those final amounts will be, so we can try and make a decision next month, or not really?
I think the sheet that Bree put together is a very nice sheet that encompasses all the requests that have been approved, the requests that are on board. And to me, that was very helpful.
I can get it updated. I have it on my list of
So
things
if we
to do.
update
It's updated.
that,
For our part, okay, we're waiting on him. Right. You know what I mean?
But I know that's kind of difficult, because it's kind of trying to hit a moving target.
I mean, I don't know if June's too fast, but do you guys want to try and do that in June or wait till July?
Because that is a nice reference sheet as far as what we.
I'd like to just have a plan, I guess.
No, I agree.
We could try that, but we just have to.
Yeah.
Just as soon as possible.
Are there other matters to be brought before us this morning? Bree,
So
Shannon,
maybe we can
Stan?
just put that on the agenda for next week. And hopefully we have enough people. If we don't, we'll find out next.
We've got a couple of things on our agenda too.
It's kind of fun around, basically.
We're making a decision on the sale of the remainder of the land on the east side of 200, so we're going to make that decision.
Hey, real quick about that, so that did not meet the appraisal value though.
Correct.
So we're not selling it,
I
are
see
we?
now.
That's what we said.
It'll be up to us to decide. We can still sell it.
Yeah.
But no, it brought just a little over $12,000 an acre. The average was 15 to the appraisal, yeah.
I thought that it had to meet that appraisal value, that average.
So,
But I thought meeting that number was part of it, selling it.
yeah, I think we can still make a decision to sell it.
It's not statutory to do at the appraisal level. The commissioners can set a sale price. It just has to be determined by them beforehand.
And they just have to have a public hearing
Correct.
when they decide that, which they did. You had a public hearing, last week.
Same day as meeting I missed.
So we will make a decision one way or another.
I think it's ridiculous.
Anything else? Liking any additional input, call for a motion for dismissal.
Motion to dismiss.
Second.
Bob? All those in favor?
Hey,
Opposed, can stay.